Hi, I'm Kristen Ward, and this is the final episode for Maquette Vallant's Summer of Stories Season 2. If you're a fan of the show, you can help make Season 3 happen by subscribing below and by becoming a patron at patreon.com/MV Story Dance. Support from patrons like you helps me upgrade my equipment, offer stipends to special guests, even pay myself for some of the 30-plus hours that go into each episode. In return, you'll get access to special behind-the-scenes footage and photos, special downloads, and more. Tonight's story is Stone Soup. Versions of this timeless tale originate from places all over Europe and can be now found all over the world. Back in the days before YouTube and Netflix lived a couple of performers named Slim and Marnie. They worked the Midwest theater circuit as masters of manipulation. Slim would juggle and Marnie would spin plates, and sometimes Marnie would juggle and Slim would spin, but the problem was neither of them had actually mastered juggling or spinning. The crowd would gasp in fear and outrage as balls, pins, and plates sailed through the air unfettered by organized direction. Musicians in the orchestra pit would don hard hats whenever the duo was on stage, and the front 2 rows would quickly become the back 2 rows as patrons dashed up the aisles. But they loved each other, and they loved the stage, until one night a juggling pin went flying just a bit too far, collided with a plate that was spinning just a bit too high, and caused what became known as the Grand Chandelier Incident. In order to keep their insurance, the troupe the duo traveled with had no choice but to let Slim and Marnie go. The two took their last paycheck and the few things they owned and began driving from town to town, performing in bars and public squares in exchange for tips and room and board. Unfortunately, after a couple of busted streetlights and one broken bottle of really nice top-shelf whiskey, word got around and no one would hire them anymore. So Slim and Marnie drove west until they ran out of gas and continued on foot into a dusty, one-stoplight town. By the time they reached the center of town, their bellies were grumbling and their feet were sore. And so they dusted themselves off as best they could and knocked on the door to Ernestine's bed and breakfast. Ms. Ernestine, the owner and a respectable woman, opened the door to see a ragtag couple holding a pair of brightly colored suitcases with Masters of Manipulation painted on the side. And before Slim could even open his mouth, she snorted, "No room, we're full." A meal then?" tried Marnie. "Or even just a bit of—" But before she could finish, the door slammed shut. Now, Slim and Marnie weren't easily disheartened, having been booed for much of their performing years. And so they continued on to Chuck's 24-hour diner over on the next corner and offered a performance in exchange for some coffee and a couple of slices of pie. After an impromptu audition that resulted in 2 broken coffee cups and a broken saucer, Chuck bellowed, "We're closed," and flipped the sign on the door as he ushered them out. One by one, Slim and Marnie knocked on doors all around the square, but the results were the same. No one had a bed, a cot, a blanket, a meal, a snack, a crumb to give 2 strangers who were, to be fair, pretty strange. Finally, the 2 sat down on a little bench right in the center of the square, their hearts feeling as empty as their grumbling bellies. Slim picked up a nice round stone and started tossing it back and forth, dropping it every few times, until finally Marnie smiled, put her hand on his, and said, "Oh, don't throw that stone away, Slim. It would be the perfect starter for my grandmother's famous soup. Well, I remember when I was just a little girl growing up in a town like this. Well, people would come from miles around just to have a taste of Gran's wonderful stone soup. Well, all this was news to Slim. He'd never heard of such a thing as stone soup, and as far as he knew, Marnie grew up in Chicago. But he knew better than to refuse to play along, and so he said loudly, "Stone soup! What a delicacy! What a delight! Cures ailments, too, from bad breath to aching feet. Why, I believe if I had some now, I might be able to keep walking all the way to California." "But, Marnie, wouldn't we need a big pot of water to cook it in?" Moments passed. The back door of the diner opened, and out stepped Chuck with a big pot of water, followed by his daughter with a hot plate and extension cord. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop," he lied, "but I've got tired feet too, and I'd like to try some of this stone soup you two have been out here hollering about." The four of them got everything set up and started, and Slim slipped the stone into the pot. As they waited for the water to start simmering, Marnie entertained Chuck and his daughter with stories about her grandmother and the little town of Cheektowaga that really seemed an awful lot like this one. Oh, Gran loved going to the farm market, and she often traded her delicious stone soup for fresh vegetables. The farmers loved it, said if they poured even a drop of it onto their crops, they would grow back tenfold. One farmer gave her so many potatoes to thank her that she began to make her soup with them, too. Imagine potato stone soup! But that was one of the best batches she ever made. Miss Ernestine's door flew open, and out she came with a small sack of potatoes and a couple of knives. "This soup you're talking about really sounds wonderful, and I just happened to have a few potatoes in my larder. Now, what you do is your business," she claimed, "but in my opinion, every soup needs salt and pepper," and she produced a couple of shakers from her apron pocket. Slim peeled the potatoes and tossed them into the pot, as Marnie sprinkled in the salt and pepper and casually chatted about how one year Grandmother's soup smelled so good that 2 chickens had walked in from a neighboring farm, shook off their feathers, and hopped right into the pot. And another year there was that terrible drought, so bad that they could hardly fill the soup pot. But Gran, she added some onions to the pot, and pretty soon the whole town was crying so much the groundwater was replenished for a whole year. One by one, doors began to open all around the square, and one by one, curious and enthusiastic townspeople added to the pot. Roast chicken, sharp onions, crisp celery, and bright carrots flew through the air and into the pot as Slim juggled ingredients and Marnie spun tales. Finally, Marnie poked at the stone, tasted a bit of potato, and announced that the soup was not only ready, but just might be the best batch ever. Miss Ernestine brought out bowls and spoons for everyone. Chuck brought out some coffee and pie for dessert, and the whole town had a grand time eating, laughing, and trading tales. When it was all over, Miss Ernestine made up her best room for the 2 guests, and in the morning the mayor gave Slim and Marnie a key to the city, and they in turn presented the town with its very own stone soup starter. The local garage gassed up their car for them, and soon the masters of manipulation were on their way, with a new act and a new hope for the future. Now, Slim and Marty may never have hit the big time, but I do hear that there are stone soup festivals in little towns all over the Midwest, and the original one, well, that one got so popular that I hear that little town might just have to put in a second stoplight. Telling this story made me hungry for some of that famous stone soup. I might have to reach out to some neighbors with gardens this weekend. You can have a stone soup cook-off in your neighborhood, too. Invite each guest to bring something to add to your pot. And enjoy the company and the creation. Tell me about your stone soup in the comments below, or post it on Facebook or Instagram with hashtag MV Summer of Stories. The story of stone soup also makes me think of how small gestures can add up to big rewards, bringing communities together while satisfying the most basic of needs. One Pittsburgh organization that is helping to do just that is 412 Food Rescue. 412 Food Rescue is a food rescue hero-driven organization that redirects good food that might otherwise go to waste to people experiencing food insecurity. To elaborate, I called on Sara Swaney, 412 Food Rescue's VP of Advancement and Engagement. Hi, Sara.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. So I have actually been a volunteer food rescue hero for a little while, but for folks out there who might be a little unfamiliar with it, could you tell us a little bit about what 412 Food Rescue is and how people can get involved?
Sure. 412 Food Rescue is a nonprofit organization based in Pittsburgh. We've been in operation for about 6 years now, and we work with businesses that have surplus food donations available, but really don't know what to do with them, how to direct them to the community. And so we work with these businesses to collect their surplus food. And this is not waste or junk. I know we often talk about food waste. This is just perfectly good food that for whatever reason is no longer sellable. And so we collect that food and redistribute it to the community to reach people who need it. And the unique way in which we do this is half of that food is moved by volunteers like you who take time out of their day utilizing our 412 Food Rescue mobile app. When a food rescue becomes available, they will opt in and accept it. And it tells them where to go to pick the food donation up and then where to drop it off so that it reaches people that same day. So unlike a food bank, we are direct transfer. We work from where the food is available and then taking it where it needs to go that same day.
Do you know if there are other cities around the US or the world adopting this same idea?
Yes, there are actually a number of food recovery organizations just like 412 Food Rescue. And actually, we help to support a number of them by selling and licensing our software to them. So we work now with about 12 organizations across North America, here in the United States, as well as Vancouver. That operate food rescue organizations just like we do, similar model, taking it from different businesses and redirecting it to the community, utilizing volunteers. And we license the software to them to help support this model so that they can help engage volunteers in this activity.
That's great. So how could people find you if they want to volunteer?
It's really easy. You can go to our website, 412foodrescue.org, and you can get more information and download the mobile app from there. Or if you're if you have iOS or Android, you can go ahead and download it from the App Store, 412 Food Rescue mobile app. And really, once you register on the app, you can get started right away. We have food rescues available every single day. There is a very simple volunteer training that you'll go through once you register on the app. And then if you're really interested in helping to support our newest initiative, which is home delivery, it started as a result of COVID. You can conduct a simple background check free of charge. And once that is complete and approved, it opens you up to even more food rescue opportunities so that we can make sure the food's reaching people who remain homebound during this time.
So in the story of Stone Soup, neighbors and strangers come together to share what they have, and they end up making this beautiful soup that feeds their community, but also brings them together socially as well.
How has 412 Food Rescue been able to unite partnering neighbors and communities in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of ways in which we demonstrate that. First of all, it takes all of these moving parts, these different components to help support this model. So we work with a variety of businesses. We're also partnering with nonprofit and other community organizations who serve people in poverty or people experiencing food insecurity to make sure the food's reaching them. And then we have this very diverse audience of volunteers, all ages, backgrounds, types, people that are willing to help support their community and take maybe an hour or two out of their time here and there to do a food rescue. And so I think the great thing is that this model is a very collaborative effort. And when we talk about the work in the community, we always talk about the collective impact. It takes all of these pieces working together to help support the mission. And I think that's what's so unique about it. We couldn't do this work on our own. Obviously, volunteers account for nearly half of all the food that we move in the community. Wow. So without them, this wouldn't work as well. And so I think it's really great to show this contribution by all groups to help support this mission.
So any plans for a 412 Food Rescue Stone Soup cook-off?
Well, I'm going to say a lot of events that we have always surround food. They always involve food. We've often have a lot of events that involve rescued food and transforming it into these amazing things like the stone soup concept. We have done a fundraiser in the past called Sunday Supper, which is really amazing, where we bring chefs from all around the world to come in, and they receive this surplus food donation like we would with a food rescue, and they will transform it into this culinary masterpiece and multi-course meal for people to enjoy. And it's really amazing to see everyone come together at the table and what food may have gone to waste that day. And then people are actually enjoying this culinary amazing dish and experience. So we do a lot of events like that. We don't have anything scheduled just yet, but that doesn't mean that something isn't coming up in the near future. But we always pretty much include food in all of our gatherings and celebrations.
That sounds like fun. Well, thank you so much for taking some time with me today.
Thank you as well, not only to share this message about our work, but for your volunteerism for supporting 412 Food Rescue. Because like I mentioned before, if it wasn't for volunteers like you, this work wouldn't be possible.
And thank you for watching. If you enjoy the show, please like, share, or subscribe below. You can also help keep the stories coming by joining us at patreon.com/MV Story Dance. I'll see you next time. In the meantime, you can catch missed episodes right here.